All right, what's up, familia? Welcome inside the pad. Hope you guys are doing good. Keep in between the lines. Got your load secured. So a while back, I went ahead and made a video talking about something else, and I said on that video that there is a danger with reading, and I said I would make a video separately for that. Well, this is that video. Okay. Um, so let me go ahead and get started with this, man. I've said it very clearly, right? I don't really like reading too much. It's okay, but some people love to read, man. Some people really, really love to read. It's like, damn, dog. Okay, man. Hey, there's something for everybody, right? There's some people that love bird watching. There's something for everybody, man. So hey, knock yourselves out, man. All right. This is no attack on people that love to read at all, Holmes. At all. Okay. So first of all, I'll just go ahead and say this, man. Do I believe reading is good? Yes, I do. I believe that the brain is a muscle and you need to work that muscle out. Reading is a damn good way to do it. Like I've said, I don't really like reading too much, man, but I force myself to read almost every night. I'm not going to say every single night because then I'd be lying, but almost every single night I read. What do I read? I read up the latest news in boxing. And right here, I do have the Bible. Okay, New King James Version Bible, and I read a chapter almost every single night. Again, I'm not gonna say every single night because, like I said, then I'd be lying. But almost every single night. Those are the two things that I do read, along with other things. Throughout the day, I'll go ahead and read up on some articles on certain subjects that I like and stuff like that, man. Some people just love reading, like that's just their hobby. Whenever they have some time to themselves, they'll go ahead, just crack open a book, man, just start reading. So look, one of the things, man, and this is not the major issue that I'm gonna bring up, but look, it is one issue, right? um Taking time for yourself, man, in the day and age that this country is extremely overweight and struggling with health issues. Look, man, it's cool that you enjoy reading. Reading is never looked at as a bad thing. It's always looked at as a good thing. It's pushed as such a positive thing that people might want to consider a little bit like, hey, you know what? Let me put the book down and let me go out for a walk. Let me put the book down and let me go out for a run, a jog, a bike ride. Some life experience for yourself and just to get yourself going, right? To get the wheels moving with yourself, man. That does not mean reading is bad and it's going to take that away from you. I'm just simply saying, look, if you got time to read, possibly use 20% of that on you physically getting up and moving your body. That's all I'm really saying, because hey, man, look, health issues are all over the place in this country, and weight issue is it keeps climbing and climbing and climbing. So for those that are just sitting down or laying down and reading, and you might want to take that into consideration of saying, because like I said, nobody's going to tell you that you're doing anything wrong, and you're not. I'm not saying you're doing anything wrong by reading, but nobody's going to say, hey, man, you know what? You read too much. That's a bad thing. Go out there, go get a hike in or something. Go out for a little jog. Nobody's really going to say that to you, but I'm just simply saying you might want to consider that, all right? But the main thing that I really want to bring up is this, Holmes. Reading is looked at as such a positive thing, as opposed to hearing somebody talk. When you hear somebody talk, it's like, I don't believe everything you hear, because it's somebody speaking. Hearing somebody talk, especially about, interesting things, whatever interests you, is actually pretty freedom, right? But at the same time, it's always thrown out there like, well, you know what, question all these things. And that's cool. That's fine. I have no issue with that. Yes, go ahead and question all that, all those things, right? Because you just heard somebody talk. However, I don't really hear anybody bring up the fact of like, hey, you know what? You should probably question on what you're reading. See, reading is looked at as such a positive thing and such a good thing. And reading makes you smart, generally speaking, in society standards. When you see somebody that reads a lot, generally speaking, usually people would think of that person, hey, that person must be smart, because they're taking the time to read. Well, what if somebody takes the time to listen to all the words that are in that book by the person that wrote it? Would that person be equally as smart or not? One could say yes, one could say no, because the reading part is actually what works out the brain. Again, I like to stick with that. That's why I do push reading. Yes, read so it could work out the brain. Absolutely. However, indoctrination can come through books because nobody questions books. Nobody questions what they read. You question what a man says, what a woman says. You could question a documentary. You could question the person that made the documentary. You could question a movie based on a true story. We already know true stories have embellishment to make it a good story because it's a movie. It needs to be entertaining. And some true stories are very, very boring. So they throw, a couple of wild things in there. They embellish the story a little bit to make it entertaining. Got it. No problem with that. It's a movie. It needs to be entertaining. Documentaries, you find out who made the documentary. Hey, you know what? This has a narrative. This is probably trying to push some sort of agenda. Somebody talking is probably the easiest way to say, like, I don't believe them. But when it comes to books, right? Here, I have, again, something that I read almost every night, a chapter of, okay? The Holy Bible. Some believe it. Some believe some of it. Some believe none of it. Some believe it's a complete fairy tale. Okay? Hey, to each their own. However, so many people have been indoctrinated by reading. Because I never hear it out there, man, that, hey, question what you read. Don't believe everything you read. Who wrote that? How do you know what you're reading is true? Do you know today, you have a lot of people fighting over history that they read in books? How do you know that history is correct? How do you know it's true? Well, because they did their research and they wrote it down. Okay, how did they do their research? Is there really anybody dissecting any of this? There's people fighting and arguing today of things that happened hundreds of years ago, apparently. And how do they know? How do they have that information? They read it. It's like if somebody says something to you, that person can be a liar. That person can be exaggerating. That person can have an agenda. That person could be pushing some sort of narrative. But if they put it in text in a book, now nobody questions that. Nobody questions, hey, you know what? That book could have an agenda. That person that wrote that could be lying, could be making things up, could be embellishment all over it. Because reading is looked and pushed as such a positive way. And again, I'm doing the same thing. Read. I'm telling everyone, I tell my sons, yeah, read, man. It's good. It's good for you. It's good for you to read. It's good for your brain to work out the brain. However, just be careful what you read. And if you're going to believe stories, look into it. How do you look into it? Well, that's on you. That's probably going to require more reading. And how do you prove that it's true? You probably can't prove ever that it's true. Like I said, you got people fighting about history today that they read in books. And how could they prove that any of that stuff ever happened? They can't. Other than just reading books. There's people that don't believe, Google and looking things up on the internet today. I'm not saying it's true. I'm not saying it's not true. But because you got it in a book, do you know who wrote the book? Joy Behar. She wrote a book. In 100 years, 200 years from now, that book is going to be looked at as a part of history. Is it true what she's writing in there? I don't know. Not 200 years from now, you don't know. But some people are going to look at that because it's in book form. as 100% facts, 100% being truth. Unless there's some sort of turn of events that they say, like, hey, you know what? Stop reading, stop believing books, or question everything you read the way people question everything they hear today. So that's kind of what I want to bring out to light. All right. When I say when I tell somebody a story, right? If I were to tell somebody a story, let me just give a quick example before I wrap it up. If I were to tell somebody a story, Holmes, okay, and then they go tell that same story, the story that I told to them, to somebody else, and then that person tells a story to somebody else, and then they tell the story to somebody else, and go on and so on and so on and so forth. By the time it gets to the 10th person, it's probably not the exact same story that I originally told. Why? Because it's just human nature. It just takes one word to switch the dynamic of the story. It might still be similar. The story could still be somewhat the same, but it's not going to be exactly what I told originally. It's just simple human nature. Somebody might switch a word. Some person might forget a word. Some person might put in their 2 cents when they tell the story. Some person might say, well, I believe he meant to say it like this, so let me go ahead and put it like this because it just sounds a little bit better. I'm not changing much of the story. But once it gets so far down the line, it's not going to be exactly word for word the way I originally told it. So just be careful with books. You can be indoctrinated that way because nobody really looks at books as a bad thing. Everybody looks at books as a really, really good thing. And I'm not saying they're not. They're there. Read stories. Absolutely. 100%, man. Read stories. I've read autobiographies. Okay. By the person who it's about. Now, are they telling the truth? If I write a book on myself, about myself, am I going to tell the truth all the way through and through? Am I going to mention everything that I should mention? Am I going to embellish anything that happened? Nobody would know except for me. But people will pick up that book and read it, especially many, many years from now, right? We're talking about 100, 200, 300 years from now. They'll pick it up, they'll read it and be like, okay, I get who this guy is. Well, yeah. Maybe except for the stuff that I left out or the stuff that I didn't put in or for the stuff that the extra sauce that I put in. What if it's somebody else that writes the book? Somebody that knows me personally writes that book. Are they putting everything they need to put in there? How does that person feel about me? So just a little food for thought right there, man. Everybody, I encourage everybody to read. Absolutely. Absolutely. Your brain needs to be worked out. Your brain is a muscle. Work it out by reading. Just be careful. Okay. And a lot of these things where it's like, hey, do your own research, do your own research. Well, listen, man, picking up a book and doing research that way, that's fine and dandy. But are you questioning that research the way you're questioning if you're looking it up on the internet? Are you questioning that research the way you're questioning somebody who is, again, well educated and tells you the information? because you're going to be very quick to question that person. You're going to be very quick to question the internet. You're going to be very quick to question documentaries or movies. But I don't hear anybody questioning any books. Because if it's in text form in a book, then it can't be a lie. For one reason or another, I just believe that because reading is looked at such a good thing, such a positive thing, I don't think anybody ever questions what's in books. So just a little food for thought, familia. So go ahead, pick up a book, man, and enjoy it for entertainment. You want to use it for research. Hey, a toda madre, knock yourself out, man. I would say read just to work out your brain. As always, live your life like you're on the road. Be aware of your surroundings and always keep a safe distance. Blood makes you live. But loyalty makes you family. Till next time, this is Ed the Thecholotrucker. Over and out.